So I guess the first question to really ask, and there are a number of questions to look at: laws, how they're being implemented, the Good Samaritan Act, what can be done to have immediate care for anybody who's actually hit by an accident, how do we make people drive better? But first of all, the basic question of changing attitudes. And perhaps, Gul, I can start with you. Are you noticing any differences at all? Are people starting to become a bit more careful or not yet?
Well, I think the interesting point to note here is that when there is the regulatory framework that takes it upon itself to actually make a change, you do see changes. The Mumbai Traffic Police's drive against drunken driving has been highly successful. It's one of the most successful drives in India, of course, and of course one of the stellar campaigns launched by a regulatory framework in the world. Incidents of drunken driving have come down dramatically. That's, of course, to address the issue of drunken driving during festive seasons and so on and so forth. As a culture, I think we don't put safety as a priority, whether it's on our roads or in the way we construct our homes or in our general attitude towards things like fire hazards and so on and so forth. Now, that may be the case. I'd like to draw your attention to something very interesting, and that is, while we can pass off the fact that we don't have a regard for life and we don't, we tend to have this, it's not my day to die, or I won't get caught if I jump a signal, or if I don't wear a seat belt, or if I say drink and drive. That may be part of a cultural ethos where you don't put safety as a priority. Having said that, if you just look at the figures, India's road fatalities account for 10% of global fatalities in the world. It can be a function of population, but China, an equally large country, has successively managed to reduce its road fatalities every year for the past decade. So it's down to less than 90,000 as of last year. While we do have a scant regard for safety as a culture, you notice the fact that our air safety record, it's an area of interest for me, I'm a hobby pilot, is actually at par with the rest of the world. In fact, it's actually, India's air safety record is at par with Germany, which is a highly organized, highly disciplined society. So what makes people who are part of a larger unsafe culture suddenly become very safe when they are in an aviation environment? The same guy who jumps in traffic.
Smaller number of flyers, better trained.
Regulatory framework.
You don't drink and fly. I've never heard of anybody drinking and flying.
Well, they do, and they get fired, and they have their licenses suspended. So it's punitive action as well. The regulatory framework and punitive action that follows any circumnavigation of the law. And that is the reason why people from this macro culture with scant regard for safety suddenly become the safest, one of the safest in the world. Once regulated, once tightly monitored. Yes, smaller numbers, but the need for regulation, the need for enforcement can't be understated.
How they will be enforced is something that I really want to come to, and I'm going to be asking Mr. Vikram Singh about that in just a minute. But Navdeep, if I can just come to you, over the course of the campaign, is that message starting to seep in? I mean, I did see, even this New Year's, for example, there were people who said, but he's not drinking or she's not drinking, they're the ones who are going to be driving. And now there's one other big benefit that is, with Uber and Ola and all of these apps. People are saying, no, I'm going to just Uber it back. I'll leave my car here. So somewhere that change coming, or still too slow?
So I think that change is absolutely coming. And there's a big shift we are seeing happening. So at United Spirits Diageo, we thought of this program 3 years ago. So there are a lot of numbers which we can discuss. But more than the numbers, I think what I would like to emphasize is the partnerships. Because this agenda was not picked up by many organizations. And the day we started the program, so I think we started with one partner, IRTE, then we had NDTV partnering us, then we had ministry coming on board, NGOs coming on board, then we have college, universities coming on board, other media channels picking it up, radio channels picking it up. So I think there is a big momentum which we saw, but at the same time, a lot of strength we are seeing. So it's not just the momentum. There's a lot of strength, and strength backed by a purpose. So for us at United Spirits Diageo, the purpose is celebrate life, but celebrate responsibly. And that message, as we saw on the video also, is being constantly giving back to our consumers, because We believe the well-being and safety of our consumer is paramount to us to sustain our business. So all these collaborations which are happening is a collective effort which definitely will bring that shift which we are aiming for.
And the more the partners, the easier it becomes to spread that message.
Absolutely.
Because then there are a lot of people who are working towards it. And we've seen this in a number of other areas.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people say this is something that we need to do. It's remarkable how you can then have change.
And also to drive behavior change, not just the attitude change. So I think typically there's a matrix of knowledge, behavior, attitude, and practice. So we will hit that behavior and practice change with this entire collaborative effort.
Okay. Dr. Gupta, you must be of course, there's still a large number, a horrifyingly large number of accidents that are taking place. What percentage do you think today would still be attributable to, obviously wrong things like drinking and driving?
Sheer numbers are too large. 150,000 deaths. If you multiply that by 30, we are producing the number of disabled, whether it is due to brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, or amputations. And one of us feels that it's not going to be me. Attributable to road traffic injuries, 55% of all these 150,000 deaths, of all the injury-related deaths is road traffic injury. So it's a huge amount of injury burden. We see at our trauma center, at the Apex Trauma Center at AIIMS, about 70,000 injured patients every year. For a single center, it is the largest number in the world. And out of which 55% is attributable directly to road traffic injuries. Then somewhere down the line, some of those 4 E's are not there. And that is why these accidents do happen.
And the people who are coming in, do you look at these people and saying, well, these are X and Y was obviously under the influence of alcohol, or hit by somebody under the influence of alcohol?
Yes.
Because this is one of those horrible things about drinking and driving. It's not necessarily yourself that you kill or you injure. You could be injuring one of your loved ones sitting in the car with you, or you could be killing or injuring a stranger on the road.
Yes.
So,
a lot many people whom we voluntarily test for alcohol positivity turn out to be alcohol positive, especially when we do it after 7 p.m. And it's natural and it's been constant, especially on the weekends, festivities, in the after hours. The incidences of drinking driving are too many. And they're all preventable. They're all 100% preventable deaths and injuries.
All right. Vikramji, if I can turn to you. 2 aspects to this. One is, of course, as Gul was also talking about the laws, the existing laws that there are, and the enforcement of the laws. Now, you do anecdotally on driving around on roads, especially in places like Delhi or Gurgaon, you will see people stopping you and checking you. But is that enough, the way the enforcement is being done right now, or do you think it needs to be tighter? And are there still cases where somebody will slip someone, tougher to get 500 rupee notes, 100 rupee notes these days, but theoretically is it still easier to slip some money to someone and saying, allow me to go?
Unfortunately, what you're saying is absolutely correct. And taking Gul's point further, what she said before the program started, accidents do not happen to me, it happened to the others, to the neighbors, to others. Let us realize that we lose almost 150,000 people a year. That is more than all the people we have lost in all the wars that we have fought. 300 deaths plus a day and 1,400 seriously injured a day. By the time your show is over, Vikram, we will have more than 200 people dead and more than 600 seriously injured. I think this is an avoidable tragedy. Coming to the laws, we have 2 statutes, the Motor Vehicles Act and the Indian Penal Code. The Motor Vehicles Act 185 identifies drunken driving and what to do with them. Then 134, the responsibility of the aggressor, of the driver who has been on the other side of law, his duties. Then the IPC 4 sections, 279, 336, 337, 338, all pertain to reckless and negligent driving and accident. But the tragedy of the whole thing is that we are imposing fines in hundreds of rupees and maybe 1,000 rupees or maybe a few thousand. That is an anachronism. And an imprisonment, all bailable. Even in 304A, it is bailable. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And I would rather that, heavens forbid, you should never see a scene of accident. It's with blood and gore and pieces of flesh and bones splattered all around. I have never felt the sinking feeling ever as I would see at a scene of an accident.
But you know, if you actually take it back, there are 2, 3 other aspects of it. It's not just catching people who are drinking and driving. Look at the way licenses are given.
Exactly.
You see, you know, sometimes people just go out there, you're paying a tout, and you're getting your license made. You may not even know how to drive carefully. When you see, if you actually were to take a picture of any of the roads, forget about people drinking and driving, even in the morning when you see the way people are swerving in and out, going there, it sometimes appears they haven't been taught. They don't know what lane changing is. Sometimes at night, it is riskier to stop at a red light because you're scared that if I stop at the red light, someone's going to come behind me at speed and actually hit me. And he'll say, why were you stopped? There's nobody on the road. Because there's a red light. It's happened to me. I stopped at a red light once and somebody came and hit me from behind. And I got out and said, what's the matter with you? He said, beach sadak mein kyun khade the? I said, red light hai. He said, to aage to koi tha nahi.
Vikram, I will tell you what John Donne said hundreds is so prophetic today. I run to death and death runs to me as fast and all my pleasures are like those of yesterday. It is so scary to move out at night, and I would say that licensing, training of drivers, training of learners is the less said the better. At least you should know not to speed, not to jump lights, not to consume liquor, and to respect the rule of law. These are the recommendations of no other than the WHO. And therefore, we need to respect laws. We need not speed. We should not consume liquor and then drive. Respect the traffic, the constable who's on the road. And as you very rightly said, the red light is there for all of us to respect and abide by.
And let me get a couple of the NGOs who've been working in the field. And Harman, you suffered an unfortunate road accident yourself, and then you founded an NGO, ArriveSAFE. What are the key lessons that you've been able to get all these years that you think we should keep in mind?
See, we have talked about 2 major things when we talk about drink driving. One is awareness, which is being done, and second is enforcement. But there's a third major angle, which we have totally ignored till now, which is availability. Availability of liquor along the highways. So in the previous 4 and 5 years, when we started this campaign of getting liquor shops removed from the highways, so we collected the data from the government agencies like the National Highway Authority of India. Believe it, 291 kilometers, 185 liquor shops. Average it out, 1 liquor man every 1.5 kilometers. So you are driving at national speed limit of 90 kilometers an hour. Every 1 minute you come across a liquor van. And then those government letters say that these are owned by very influential and powerful people, and we cannot get them removed.
But I thought the court is now stepping into this.
Yes, court has finally stepped in, and it's been 4 years effort of my young advocate, Mr. Vikram Gupta, that now with effect from 1st April 2017, more than 50,000 liquor vents, that is 40% of the liquor vents, would be off the national and state highways. So they would neither be visible from the highway and would be at least 500 meters away from the highway, and there would be no advertisement on the highway. So if there is no availability, the probability of one stopping over for a drink would definitely reduce.
All right, Rajiv?
Same, I think I'll also agree by what people are generally, seeing here. But looking at the real life situations that I have been witnessing throughout my engagement with saving lives so far is people are not even bothered about law. They're not really bothered whether they'll be caught or not because they can pay whatever they want. They have it in their pockets. And nowadays, the card machines are also there. So the traffic policeman will also have the card machine to swipe it out. And they'll also be saved in that way.
But tougher to pay a bribe through a card machine, though.
I don't know whether they'll be paying the bribes or not, but yes, the card machines are being used nowadays. So people are generally very comfortable paying whatever amount is being charged. But also, it's also about the person, again, the licensing authorities and all, how they are, issuing licenses to somebody who has probably a criminal past or such instances the person might have done in the past. So I think it needs a more holistic effort of everyone, and especially, engaging young people in the entire movement is very, very important because young people are the ones who are probably willing to take more responsibilities in the day-to-day initiatives. Yeah.
Navdeep, so let's turn to the young people because he's right. Quite often we find these campaigns, once you start influencing young people, it makes a big change. And let's face it, those are the young people coming out of school, going into colleges who are some of the primary targets right now when you're going out for a party. What should you do have a designated driver, worry about the law. At the end of the day, is it more about convincing them to do it right, or is it more about policing it to make sure that someone who does something wrong gets punished?
So I think there are 2-3 things basically on this. So the education and enforcement has to work hand in hand. So we have to have a good balance of both. Also, I mean, in our conversations, we discussed that a human or a man is not rational. So by giving a gyan that you shouldn't be drinking and driving will not work. So you need to have a very convincing argument. So for example, we are kind of building a momentum on a campaign where we are asking you to pledge for whom you will not drink and drive. So bring that element alive, that if I drink and drive, my mother who's raised me, or my cat for that matter, who would be suffering. So bring that element of connect back. And I think that's what picking a lot of momentum. We have our partner Delhi School of Economics students here. They are running this campaign where we're running this pledge that who you will be not drinking and driving for, so that any day you pick up a glass of drink, you realize, oh my God, I pledged for my mother or for my wife or my kids. So I think that's the kind of programs which we are evolving for the younger generation. The other thing which I discussed with Dr. Saab was that we also must build a momentum of making younger generation aware about how to be a first responder to a road accident. Because I think the more they respond to such accidents, the more they are closer to the harsh reality of the subject. And then they will be able to at least make a behavior shift from never get behind the wheels after celebrating a milestone in their life. So yes, there is a lot of focus on young generation through our programs.
Right, Dr. Kuttas, let me turn to that aspect of it. I'm going to ask both of you as well. He referred to the issue of helping somebody who's had an accident. And that's been really sad. We've been seeing this over this entire campaign for the last 2 or 3 years. A number of people who could have been saved if somebody had taken them quickly to a hospital, would have maybe not suffered the injuries that they did. But people don't do it. And the reason they don't do it is for 2-3 reasons. In some cases, there's selfishness. And secondly, there's been this perception in people's minds that if I actually intervene, if I take somebody from the road, take them to the hospital, oh, I'm going to get caught in a legal case and the police will come and I can't take on the headache. How do you counter that?
I think education, public awareness. So Apex Trauma Center at AIIMS was the first one to not to ask anybody who's bringing in the accident victims their details. We had this sustained campaign along with a few NGOs, which eventually went into become the Good Samaritan law, which the Supreme Court agreed to. No hospital or physician has got any role in asking, before he starts treating that particular patient, in asking the whereabouts of the person who's bringing in. So I think that sustained campaign of educating people that nothing will happen to you, you will not be harassed by the police or the doctors, and the care of the patient would be taken much before any legal formality is there. I think a sustained campaign on that respect is also needed.
So training of doctors and nurses, because in addition to people not bringing them in, right, we still hear these horror stories, yes, and maybe not at AIIMS, but in other places, yes, and especially in the rural areas. You still hear these horror stories that an accident victim is brought in or somebody with injuries is brought in, and the doctor saying, how did it happen, case file karna hai, police karo, ye karo, wo karo, and doing all of that paperwork, right, before treating that person and, right, saving lives. Right. Does the law need to change for that, or is training required for that?
No, I think the law is very clear on that. No physician who's treating initially any accident victim or roadside victim can deny primary treatment to that patient. Law is very clear, and most of the doctors do know about it, but unfortunately, you know the reality, I know the reality. There are certain hospitals, smaller facilities, which probably due to lack of infrastructure or their training, do not want to entertain such horrid accidents. But again, law is very clear that primary care has to be given, whatever be the case.
Okay, but is that law being implemented, or is it not being done quite to that same extent?
Not much, and the acceptability is rather minimal. The Supreme Court, the guidelines given by Justice Gowda and Justice Arun Mishra, March 2016, a recent verdict that a good Samaritan will be respected by the courts, the police, and the doctors. Therefore, A good Samaritan is a person whom the society should salute and should not be put to any undue questioning or harassment. Therefore, the Supreme Court wanted all the state governments to give the widest publicity, and through this program and other such programs and through your influencer, the Good Samaritan findings given by the Supreme Court needs to be widely publicized, that nobody would come to any harassment or be harassed by any quarter if he helps a road victim or road accident victim.
Right, Gul, but again, all of this comes down to, so the laws are changing, the systems are changing, the laws do enable you to not be harassed if you're helping somebody out. The law does say that the doctors have to assist and not keep the person waiting. And by the way, there are laws which say you shouldn't be driving on the wrong side of the road, you shouldn't be speeding, you shouldn't be drinking and driving, but those laws, none of these laws are actually quite often being followed in practice, and which is the reason why people are dying every 5 minutes.
Which actually brings me back to the initial point I made, Vikram. There's two aspects to any change that you want to bring about behaviorally in society. One is through enforcement, wherein you don't jump a traffic signal because you're scared the cop will catch you. That's the first layer. That's the enforcement mechanism of the state that's preventing you from breaking the law. So, of course, I think it's, maybe sir would be able to tell us whether it's physically possible to put so many people on the streets. The second aspect is what Navdeep touched upon, behavioral changes, where you aggressively, through various campaigns, through responsible corporates like themselves, through civil society, through schools, where you educate people about the ills and the benefits of breaking the traffic laws and the benefits of actually following them. And I think the two need to go in tandem. Enforcement needs to go in tandem with behavior modification and education and awareness for any lasting change to happen. Otherwise, you don't want to. The idea is you shouldn't have to obey a law because you don't want to get caught. You have to obey the law because you believe in the law.
So
I
to
think
that
that
extent, what
is
Navdeep
really,
was
really
saying,
important, which is what
Navdeep was saying, try and make it personal. Say, this is my mother, this is my wife, this is my girlfriend, these are my children who are at home. Don't leave
whatever
them
it
alone.
takes, whatever
Cats,
it takes.
dogs, whatever.
So I think
Make sure you
that
have
the
to come back.
behavioral aspect, Vikram, is very, very important because the law will only take you so far. Yes, automation is the answer. You could have cameras at every traffic intersection point. You could have cameras everywhere, and that will happen. But then those feeds will have to be monitored by real people. Do we have the resources? So ultimately, I think there has to be aggressive intervention in awareness from all sections of society, from the corporates to schools, and education at schools and colleges.
I think Rajiv was trying to say something.
I was trying to relate with a very recent experience that I had while saving an auto driver who was very severely hurt. I took him to a nearby South Delhi hospital, private hospital. I should not name the hospital, so I won't want to name it here. So the doctor on the duty who came, he started posing me questions like, "Kya ho gaya inko? Aap kyun yahan par leke aaye?" And I was keen. I said, "Good Samaritan law बन चुका है सर, गाइडलाइंस आ चुकी हैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट की. आप इनको एडमिट करिए, फर्स्ट एड दीजिए. उसके बाद ask me a question whether why have I taken him here and why didn't I go to the AIIMS Trauma Center." So the doctor who was there was quite, I think the doctor was shocked actually. So he didn't have anything to say. So he admitted the person, or the person was made to lie on the bed. स्ट्रेचर था वहाँ पर, उनको लगा के मैंने बोला आप फर्स्ट एड इनको दीजिए. एंड द डॉक्टर वाज मोर कीन टू फाइल द MLC रिपोर्ट जो मेडिको लीगल केसेस में होते हैं. सो मुझे वो पूरा बड़ा सा रजिस्टर निकाल के यूं पेजेस पलट के जिनमें बॉडी की शेप बने, सर विल टेल बेटर दैट्स MLC का, कहाँ पे लगी है, क्या लगी है एंड ऑल. एंड देन आई टोल्ड द डॉक्टर, सर प्लीज वेट फॉर दिस. I am here. I am a good Samaritan. You can Google my name also. You can come to know who am I. So I am not going to run from here. He was more keen कि guards वगैरह आप लोग आसपास में रहना, ये यहाँ पे छोड़ के चले ना जाएं. So I could hear from doctor's mouth that was being whispered to the security personnel who were there. And I was like, मैं यहाँ खड़ा हूँ, आप इनको करिए, first aid दीजिए इनको. And believe me, I am not lying. Instead of attending the patient in such a critical situation where the patient was actually needing probably a plastic surgery because it was a very, very deep injury here, and his blood loss was immense, and he was crying in pain, absolutely crying in pain. And I can still, while I'm speaking, I can get goosebumps also while I was trying to save him. So the doctor was more keen to file the MLC first, and secondly, this driver, the auto driver who had met with an accident, when I'm insisting that he can get the first aid here, he was probably, constantly telling me, सर मुझे यहाँ मत ले चलो, सर मैं मर जाऊंगा, सर मुझे एम्स ले चलो, सर मुझे एम्स ले चलो, सर. So the kind of awareness that we are talking about, we also need to reach out to common man probably through the younger people that, see, it is your
You
right.
know what the law is, you could tell it to the doctor, but somebody else, they may not have been able to even tell the doctor that, look, the Good Samaritan Act has been passed and therefore you have to do X, Y, and Z. You wanted to add something to that, and I want to come to some case studies in the audience.
Just one little thing, that with the Good Samaritan Act, at times it seems like, we are trying to demonize the doctors, that they don't admit the patients. I'm just giving you my own example. It's 20 years back, and like our car fell down in a remote area, and one trucker, he stopped, he took me to the hospital, and at that point of time, there was no Good Samaritan Act, and the doctor did not ask him any questions. And I really wish, if ever I could come across that gentleman, I could thank him for the effort he made.
All right, that's really heartening. That's good to know. And you're right. I mean, there are excellent people who come out, who help. There are doctors who take care. There are people who help out. So we should not vilify everyone. There are good eggs, there are bad eggs. I guess everywhere. So let's come to a couple of other case studies. Arun Kumar, who's here in the audience. If you would like to just share your story, you also encountered a tragic accident that has been changing our family. What is it that you would like to share with us? Let's get a mic. Can we just get a mic to him? Yeah, there. Sit down and speak, please. Sit down.
7 अप्रैल 2013 को मैं क्लास से आ रहा था करीब 1:30 बजे 1:30 के आसपास दिन में, और छतरपुर रेड लाइट के पास रेड लाइट रेड थी, मैं बाइक रोक करके खड़ा हो गया। हमारे बगल में भी ऑटो वाला था और भी लोग आकर के खड़े हो गए। पीछे से एक वैगनार, काले रंग की वैगनार जिसमें बहुत तेज़ म्यूजिक बज रहा था,
माइक तेरा पास पकड़ लीजिए,
म्यूजिक बज रहा था, और वो आया और मैं जैसे एक मज़ार है, मज़ार के पास ही में रुका हुआ था, वो मुझे हिट करके भाग लिया, आगे चला गया रेड लाइट में ही। मैं उठने का कोशिश किया, मैं गिर गया, फिर उठने का कोशिश किया लेकिन नहीं उठा, फिर गिर गया। फिर अगले ही स्टॉप पर पुलिस वाले थे, जिप्सी लगा हुआ था पीसीआर वैन का, वो लोग उसे पकड़ लिए, कार वाले को। अब वो पुलिस वाले और उन दोनों में क्या बातें हुई, वो हमको प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में ले जाने के लिए बोल रहे थे कि चलो इसे प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में करवा देते हैं। हम बोले नहीं सर, मेरे पास उतने पैसे भी नहीं हैं कि मैं प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल में जाऊं, मुझे टखने में चोट लगी थी, मैं खुद से खड़ा नहीं हो पा रहा था। फिर हमने बोला कि नहीं, मुझे ट्रॉमा सेंटर या फिर सरकारी हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट करवा दो। फिर पुलिस वाले ने मुझे काफ़ी बोला कि चलो कोई बात नहीं, एक बार फोर्टिस है बगल में, बसंत कुंज में है, यहाँ पर तुम चले जाओ, हो जाएगा, ठीक हो जाएगा। मैं इतना जानता था कि अगर मैं फोर्टिस में गया तो मैं उतना एफर्ट नहीं कर पाऊँगा वहाँ का इलाज। मैं फिर ट्रॉमा सेंटर में गया और मेरे पैर के टखने ये टूट चुके थे। मैं पिछले 2013 पूरे साल तक 6 महीने तक मैं बेड पर रहा और आफ्टर 6 मंथ मैं ये व्हील चेयर और ये स्टिक पर चलता रहा। मेरे सारे जो काम पहले जो मैं कर रहा था वो सब डैमेज हुआ। और
आप सिर्फ रेड लाइट पर रुके हुए थे?
रेड लाइट पर रुके हुए थे। बाइक मेरी बंद थी, इंजन में ऑफ कर देता हूँ। रेड लाइट जब ज़्यादा देर का होता है तो मैं बाइक बंद कर देता हूँ।
So I just want to turn to all of you and just get a sense of this, because what do you do about the fact that, and this is one area, look, people do sometimes drink and drive everywhere. In all parts of the world, you will hear stories of it. But some of the blatant disregard for traffic rules that you will encounter on Indian roads is horrific. You know, people like this and others, you'll see them every day. Day before yesterday, I was seeing this person coming at speed. There was traffic there, swerved into the wrong side of the road, was weaving in and out of traffic coming the other way. And I kept on saying, you know, he's going to kill himself, but before he kills himself, he might kill somebody else. And you see this on a daily basis on Indian roads. What can be done for that? It has to be just enforcement, I guess.
Everything went horribly wrong with you, and I'm so sorry to hear your story. And heavens forbid it should never happen to anybody again. But what we can do, education, what you are doing, enforcement, and howsoever lacks the faithful implementation of the laws that we have. Whenever they are amended or improvised, let it be. But till the time, whatever laws there are, there should be faithful. In your case, everything went wrong. Somebody, maybe drunk or not drunk, was rash and negligent to bang into you. then the police probably were into a bargaining mode rather than taking you to the first available trauma center and ensured proper medical treatment. That did not happen to you. Everything went horribly, and I'm so sorry to hear that.
एजुकेटेड थे और गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में जॉब करते थे, एयरफोर्स में थे। 2 बंदे थे, हम पुलिस केस भी हुई उस पर, 1 साल के बाद उसमें आया, फिर हमने उन्हें माफ़ कर दिया, वो हमारे पैर पर गिर पड़े।
अभी आपका बड़प्पन था, लेकिन माफ़ी के काबिल वो थे नहीं वैसे।
उनकी नौकरी चली जाती और भी हमने सोचा चलो जो हुआ सो हुआ, अब तो ये लोग।
But शायद उससे message फैलता। Conclave Prasad, you also suffered the terrible grief of losing your son in a road accident, after which you started an NGO and helping others. You want to share your story?
This happened in October 2012. My son, with his 2 friends, was walking back from college when a motorcycle driven by a youngster, they were tripling, there were 3 boys on the motorcycle, came from the opposite direction and hit my son. The impact was so severe that when he fell down, he hit his back of the head on the pavement, and he immediately collapsed there. Then these boys took him to the hospital. He was immediately put on the ventilator, but he could never recover after that. We waited for about 10-12 days, and then the doctor said it's no point. His organs starting deteriorating, and that was. And these were youngsters. They were not drunk. They were probably and coming from the wrong direction. I mean, people are not afraid of law here. Unfortunately, no.
Not afraid of the law, and perhaps that is something that I want to turn to all of you now. We've got, yes, awareness, yes, talk about it, but at the end of the day, I do believe that there's a certain amount of fear of the law, enforcement of the law that has to kick in. There is a reason why those 3 people going the wrong way on a motorcycle would not do it if they were studying in the US. They would not do it if they went to Singapore. They would not do it if they went to London. They do it here because they think they can get away.
So I'm very sorry to hear about this. It's truly heartbreaking. And I think the responsibility rests on all our shoulders to make sure that in our own spheres of influence, we make sure we impact the lives of as many people as we can when it comes to road safety, including but not limited to, of course, consumption of alcohol, following traffic rules, etc. India is a signatory to the Brasilia Declaration, where we are committed to reducing road fatalities by 50% by 2020, which is just 3 years away. And that's not going to automatically happen. So I think first there needs to be aggressive intervention from the state, wherein through enhanced enforcement, through punitive action, wherein people don't turn around and break traffic laws with impunity. So there is no escaping the fact that the state has to intervene with a heavy hand. After all, 2 to 3% of GDP is lost as a result of road accidents, disabilities, and deaths. And that's not a small number in a fledgling sector where you have so many people trying to make a better life for themselves. While we are a fast-growing economy, we can't afford this loss at a pure economic level. So the state has to intervene. It has to put its might behind enforcement. And of course, it has to be tied in together with behavior modification in education, awareness through civil society, through schools and educations, and the public sector has the dissemination mechanism to make it happen. After all, the government is equipped with a very, very vast terrestrial dissemination network through All India Radio, through Doordarshan, and there is available the resource at the disposal of the government to make sure the awareness campaigns, the education material is put out. So the two have to happen in tandem, Vikram. There's no way out.
Well, a little later, we are going to be having the Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, coming in. So perhaps final comments from all of you is a suggestion that we can pass on to the government what they need to do. We know what message we are telling people out there they should be doing. They shouldn't drink and drive. But what can the government do? Maybe one quick suggestion.
I've made mine. I'd just like to add one more thing, that I think the example of Mumbai police, while it's a microcosm, it's about drunken driving. But what Mumbai traffic police has managed to achieve is dramatically reduce incidents of drunken driving. Now, with the same zeal, if general traffic violations were approached, I think we'd have greater results. So enforcement and fear of law, so that people don't break these laws with impunity.
All right. Vikram, a no-nonsense approach and a faithful implementation of the rule of law and enforcement. Number two, the use of technology. We have several apps. After one accident, I designed an app for myself. It is available free of cost. Put that on your mobile phones, just photograph, and the nearest police station, ambulance, and the hospital will be contacted and do whatever they can. Use of technology and faithful enforcement and a no-nonsense approach to that.
Right?
Being from the hospital side, and we were discussing behavioral change, there were two interventions, and Victoria State in Australia has one of the best track records in road traffic injury fatalities, and they've reduced it more than 50% in the last decade. Two beautiful interventions they did was that whenever a person is caught violating a traffic rule, he is supposed to work voluntarily for 1 day in a trauma center, see the patients there, what happens to those patients, and that really makes a difference, when he sees actually what he is producing or because of his faults. And the second one was the party program, which is focusing on adolescents and teenagers. They are brought to the hospital and to the trauma center, and they're shown what happens if you drink and drive, what happens if you have risk-taking behaviors, and that really
example
makes
would
make a big
difference.
impact on them.
Right. Navdeep.
Yeah, so I think we believe that safety should be a way of life. So to convert that behavior into a way of life, I think a lot is required. So three dimensions of education, enforcement. There's another dimension which probably we'll discuss throughout the day is the engineering part of it. There are a lot of issues around engineering on the roads. A lot of underpasses are ignored. A lot of footover bridges are underutilized. So all these three things has to bundle together to make a very significant impact on road safety.
All right. Let me get final thoughts from you as well.
Yeah, so for me, engaging parents is also equally important, and engaging young people. And apart from that, one has to be aware, made aware of the fact that they should use a proper ISI mark helmet, because most of the road accidents that I have seen of the bikers is they are, hit almost everywhere all across their head, which is very, very fatal.
All right.
So awareness and enforcement, they are important, but equally important is, setting responsibility or accountability. Imagine 8 school children dying because the bridge doesn't have guard railings, and no engineer gets booked for that. So to get this done, we are again, forced to move the Supreme Court. So if those people are held accountable, just to make sure, imagine in Punjab only, in the border area, there are nearly 100 such bridges which do not have guard railings. So people are bound to fall, and none of those engineers are held accountable. So that accountability is equally required.
All right, well, I think there are very important lessons which we will be passing on to the minister, who's going to be joining us in a short while. We're going to have to end this panel, but Anjali's file is going to be up next with the next panel, and then Mr. Gadkari is going to be coming on and speaking to all of us. So thank you all so much for your support and for being part of this conclave here today. As we close this discussion, I would like to urge all of our audience and our viewers to take the pledge to never drink and drive. Always choose a designated driver. Do help somebody on the road. If you ever see somebody who's had an injury, who's been an accident victim, help that person out. There is a good Samaritan law now in place. And if you see somebody driving in a reckless, crazy fashion, try and take a picture of that person's license plate. Let's find a way of getting that person reported so that in some way, a certain amount of adherence to road regulations and laws is actually kept in mind as well.